Hello and welcome to the Spiciest Salsa 2024. We have all of your favorite podcaster friends. We have the Line Arc Line. We have the lovely and talented Shaunasaur. We have Sunless, rather Sunless, as well as Nemo, and of course, your host, Clever Diversion. We're going to be going through all of our top favorite 2024 video games that we played last year. And then we're going to talk about some salsa at the end. But we know why you're really here. It's always the salsa. It's always been the salsa. Up on our screen right now, you see our brackets. We're going to be going through Dragon's Dogma, Earth Defense Force 6, Nobody Wants to Die, Star Citizen, Magic the Gathering, Arena versus Balatro, and Tiny Rogues versus Dredge. All right, let's get our introductions out of the way. Would you like to introduce yourself, Carbon Speed Dating?
Yeah, hello, I'm Carbon Speed Dating. A lot of the kinds of games that I'm going to be bringing for this are more narrative focused as opposed to pure gameplay mechanics. So I'm excited to get to those. I feel like they're a genre that don't get a lot of love, especially in this last year with very popular games like Balatro. So yeah, excited.
All right, so how about you, Shaunasaur? What are you bringing?
Hey, I'm Shaunasaur, and I also enjoy lots of indie games. And so this year I brought a game called Pentiment and a game called Dredge that I absolutely adored this past year.
All right, and how about you, Line Arc Line?
I'm Linark Line. You're probably watching this on my channel. I am bringing a couple games, and they are both roguelikes because I feel like it was a year for roguelikes. I'm bringing Balatro and Tiny Rogues. Balatro.
Nice.
Whoops.
Yeah. Our
First of
usual
many.
guest, Hale Noxit, is unable to attend today, but we're gonna, soldier on. The show must go on, as they say. And what about you, Rather Sunless?
Hi, I'm Rather Sunless, and as usual, I am bringing some lovely large-scale action games, very focused on scale this time, with Earth Defense Force 6 and Horizon Forbidden West.
All right, and with that, we move swiftly on to our first round. At the top, we have Dragon's Dogma 2 versus Earth Defense Force 6. I think I'll take what is Dragon's Dogma 2 at the beginning. Dragon's Dogma is a game that I played in a rush right before Dragon's Dogma 2 came out. I think I completed the whole thing in about a week and a half. It was one of my greatest gaming feats ever, and it was extremely rewarding. Almost a genre bending or genre aware kind of third person action game with a focus on player choice and subverting expectations. All right, Sunless, what do you think about Earth Defense Force 6?
Earth Defense Force 6 is, as expected, sequel to Earth Defense Force 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and all of them. It is a extremely large-scale third-person shooter about an alien invasion or recovering from one, but its primary claim to fame is that it focuses on scale and quantity and content over traditional fidelity and appearance. So I'm excited to get to talk about it.
Awesome. And why did you bring it? Why'd you bring it?
I brought it for all of those reasons I just said, because it's really nice to see a game that, really just focuses on what it's trying to be and sacrifices everything on the altar of its core specific purpose. The whole point of EDF6 is that it's just you, or you and 3 of your friends, against 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 different beings that all hate you and want to kill you or your friends. They're all the enemies are interesting, visually unique, have unique attacks, swarm across the map in various ways. EDF6 introduces these Spider-Man robots that you're seeing on the screen right now. You might see a few of them swing through the sky. But it's
Awesome.
It's just pure fun.
Spider-Man robot.
Yeah, it really makes you feel like
You're defending the Earth.
you're defending the Earth.
Wait, are
See,
they Spider-Man robots or Spider-Man robots?
They're robots that move like Spider-Man does.
Oh, sweet.
Great.
They,
Why does he
Sure.
wear the mask?
because they're androids. They don't have a face.
That's great.
They're machines. They're full-on
All right.
machines.
Is this
So-
game
Yeah.
multiplayer?
Yes.
I have to admit, I have not yet gotten to play Earth Defense Force 6. And your enjoyment of this series is infectious, and you've explained it to me before as the unapologetic action game.
Yes.
And I find that really nice. It certainly differentiates it from a lot of AAA games right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I do want to bring up real quick before we move on to Dragon's Dogma that one of the major advances that EDF 6 made over EDF 5 is the story in this one is not a lot more involved, but more interesting. They did a lot of work with it. And to that end, EDF 6 is in story and in text. Actually, Earth Defense Force 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 all at once.
Awesome.
These
That's
aren't
so great.
small
That's some
games
wild
either.
lore.
No, it took maybe 40 or 50 hours to do one playthrough, and you're meant to do more than one. Meant to is carrying a lot of weight here. You certainly don't have to. One
Sure.
playthrough is certainly good enough to have a darn good time. But the things you experience as you go through EDF 6 just blows a whole bunch of AAA stuff way out of the water in terms of the amount of like depth and content and little decisions that they made. As you might surmise by it being a whole bunch of its own sequels, there's some time travel involved. Every time you time travel, the menu changes, and the music in the menu changes, and your appearance changes, and
It's very
there's
diegetic.
very diegetic. There's even a moment in the game where you have to, as part of gameplay to progress the story, successfully navigate the menu, the menu in which you choose what mission to go on.
Wow.
That becomes
awesome.
a gameplay choice.
That's some like Dark Souls level, like, or
It's-
I guess Metal Gear Solid Kojima level.
It's,
of,
yeah,
like, you know,
very Metal
plug
Gear.
your controller into the second player slot.
Yeah, it doesn't get meta, but it involves its whole self and the whole game in telling this story about time travel and time loops.
great.
And
I mean, we're
fighting enemies.
watching the gameplay of the jetpack girl right now, and it
Wing
seems
diver.
fun as hell. And like the way the jetpack moves is really accurate and cool. And that's the thing is like I feel like Dixon played this, or my brother played this game a huge amount. I think the third one when it was still on PlayStation 2. And it's just a great game for sleepovers. It's hours and hours and hours of fun. It takes itself seriously in the way that like 1950s sci-fi movies do. I think Sunless told me there's like frog aliens, and the whole commentary is how much they're just like people. They're just like us. They have 2 legs and 2 arms, just like we do.
They're exactly like people, virtually indistinguishable. Of course, the alien greys that show up that look a lot more human-like are nothing like us. How dare you say that? That's disgusting.
Yeah, they're like,
Oh.
this could never be how we look on. Are these the denizens of Earth? That couldn't stand for that.
This touches
Yeah.
on a few themes that we commonly encounter here in the Spiciest Salsa. These, off to the side conversations about video games that we have before we get to the salsa. The first of which is really using your canvas. And I appreciate, like, there are some stories that can only be told through video games. And I think those are the most worthwhile video games, is the ones where you can't tell it in a book, you can't tell it in a movie. It uses the media canvas of a video game in order to portray different things than you could portray in any other format. And that's why I like to hear about the menu changes and the ways that the game interacts with itself in order to tell that story, and kind of subverses, it goes against expectation in order to portray a certain element. And the
You're
second,
right. I mean, hey, that could be the name of this round if we really would get into it. Like, I am such a sucker for games that play on your expectations as a gamer in the medium and the genre. That's why I'm such a huge fan of Dark Souls. I mean, parts of Hollow Knight do this too. And I think it's one of the coolest things that video games can do. And that's a great transition into Dragon's Dogma, which is a genre that's in a lot of ways about exactly that. Is when you first play through Dragon's Dogma 1, it's almost like painfully typical, like almost too classic or classicist in its structure, where you can get very bored, which then makes all of the ways in which they subvert your expectations all that much more rewarding. To the point where I don't even necessarily want to provide any spoilers for people who haven't played the series yet. But like things are not as they seem, and in a lot of ways, that's the cool part of the game. Now, it doesn't have to take a long time to get through, but it can, and that's something that I'm still not done with Dragon's Dogma 2, and I put in, I think, like 90 hours into it at this point, or at least over 70. And one of the things about Dragon's Dogma 2 that I'll say for it is this is a game that lets you climb on the monsters, Shadow of the Colossus style, which is worth its own weight in gold to me as a gamer. Like, that's just one of the coolest things that I've ever seen. And so that was a huge draw for me to purchase the game in the first place. You can pick up enemies and throw them into the water. You can do so many things that other games don't even try to do, even in 2025. And also, when it is working correctly, it can look very pretty. It doesn't always work correctly, and sometimes it just crashes to desktop. But when you look at what I'm showing on the screen right now, like, you fight dragons and they feel big and as hard as dragons should. You fight cyclopses and you can climb all the way up the cyclops and stab them in the eye. Like, it's, in a lot of ways, the realization of a lot of people's, I guess, wishes or goals for the Dark Souls series, and certainly how I wanted video games to go after playing Shadow of the Colossus, and something that me and my brother would talk about when we were 7 years old, after playing Morrowind, as like, wouldn't it be cool if you can jump on the monster and stab it,
How do you feel about the fact that the art style itself isn't really doing anything like very strong? Like, it doesn't really seem to have much of an artistic identity that I would expect from like these big open world games like this.
For me, a lot of it just strikes me as like modern lighting is the art style.
I mean, it's as opposed to, like, I've been playing the Dragon Age games recently, or Baldur's Gate, where like it's not even just a question of like architecture, but just like the color scheme in this game is mostly brown.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly has that 2000s legacy, I would say.
Well, it's very funny to see it like side by side with Earth Defense Force. That's what I'll say.
Oh yeah, the definite swings in color gradient. I think it's communicating an attitude and tone of kind of realism and more of a somber world, because the world is pretty dark. Let
me interject a little bit about Dragon's Dogma 2 real quick, because one of the things I wanted to mention that your question brings at is that for the first bit of Dragon's Dogma 2, maybe the first like 10 or 15 hours, it has the strongest sense of adventure I have ever experienced in a video game.
D&D levels.
It is nigh perfection in terms of like the attrition in like a realistic and not painful or punishing way, the like something new around every corner, but it feels like it kind of like those things are supposed to be there, and that you like finding them feels natural and not gamey or placed. Monsters that are like too large for you to fight appear on the horizon and you need to like hide or run away, whereas the small ones you can either jump or ambush or get ambushed in turn by. And the color grading and like the visual effects help with that, because they sacrifice so much on that to focus on how good the lighting is. Yeah. Like, you don't understand the Dragon's Dogma aesthetic until you've seen it at night.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm
and
sensing a
in
bit
a
of a theme
cave.
between this and Earth Defense Force, though, like in a good
Yeah.
way. Of both, these are games first and foremost.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's actually that could also be a strong contender for the spirit of this matchup in particular. Is like they're gamers' games. You know, they know that you're there to have the gamer experience, and they deliver very strongly. Before we get too far into any direction, I do want to importantly bring up the pawn system as part of Dragon's Dogma 1 and 2. I think it's one of the most interesting parts of the genre, although it has somewhat troubling implications for the real world of the
Are you
game.
worried about? Are you worried about the implicit slave class of the
Yeah,
game?
it's an implicit slave narrative, but it's
they're cool
also
with it.
really cool that you can make a helper NPC with actually good AI that you like train up, and then your friends online can hire out your NPC and get the benefits of that, and then also train them. And then when they send them back, you can give them a little gift,
It
or
seems
they
almost like
share
a
the
Strand
knowledge.
game.
Yeah,
Like
kind of.
Hideo Kojima's, rethinking multiplayer in order to
Exactly.
bring people
Yeah.
together, but in ways that are not directly beside each other.
And it's cooperative.
It's
It's
very
it's
nice,
only
like,
a space where you can build and you don't tear down your fellow players.
Yeah,
I
I
would
like
say
that because it feels like the sort of game that lets you be cooperative with people without necessarily having to stick to a schedule with them.
Absolutely. And they share the knowledge of the things that you show that pawn back when of both the quests of how to complete I guess full versions of the quest. One of the great parts of the game is there's often multiple levels of percentage completion that you can have on a quest where you can technically have the quest end, but you didn't discover all of the things about it, or there's many false endings. And if you do a little bit more of investigation and digging and kind of showcase your understanding of the world, you can get higher levels of thoroughness, better rewards, and then your pawn will remember that. And when they go back to your friend's world, or your friend's pawn will remember it, and when you go back to your friend's world, they'll tell them that, which is really, really cool.
Sounds very
It's all that
rewarding.
the hidden knowledge that I love so much about Dark Souls and Morrowind, and it's all here. It's all really there. The other thing is the combat's just fun. It's just a fun game. Both of these games are just really, really fun when you play them. They're just fun all the way through. It does get somewhat tedious when you're on like hour 50 and you're doing the same combo, but there's what never gets old is throwing goblins off of cliffs or into rivers or into the ocean.
That does sound great.
It's great that you can pick up enemies and throw them or climb on them. Have I mentioned that? It's so good.
so. The other motif that I was going to mention, we were talking about Earth Defense Force, is doubly relevant in this game, because a lot of the times in the Spiciest Salsa, we encounter two games where one puts its focus into story and telling a narrative using the gameplay, and one is very focused on the gameplay itself and the mechanics and deep, enjoyable mechanics. And for this matchup, I would put mechanics and the depth of the game into those gameplay elements towards Earth Defense Force, and I'd use the storytelling towards Dragon's Dogma 2. What do you guys think of that?
I mean, I do agree. I do think that Dragon's Dogma 2 is taking a big, hefty home run baseball swing at making a modern AAA game. Whether or not that swing lands is kind of up in the air. Whereas Earth Defense Force 6, I think, is an homage to older styles of gameplay perfected to the absolute distilled essence of what they can be, which is also great. I mean, I see it as like there's so many different axioms for the themes we could go with in this round. I do like the meta narrative, kind of subverting expectations, or like a gamer's game that is playing you back, kind of.
I mean, it brings into question, and I think it's time to talk about which one is going to win here.
Oh, yeah.
Because we can start to make these comparisons.
We do
We
have
should
to
name the round, though. We should decide on a name.
That's a good point. I was hoping to compare them a little before deciding on my vote. But yeah, what is I would say that this round is run and shoot. No.
I mean,
Jump at you, man.
I quite liked the gamer's game. I think that's
Yeah.
a pretty descriptive way of describing them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it knows you're playing it.
It's
Yeah.
just pure fun.
Which I also
It's
think
just fun.
I also think that kind of at least a little bit implies that idea of like subversion, because it's a game for people that have already played games, so you have to still present something new, like or at least you have expectations when you go into the game that the developers can play with.
Yeah, it's like it's a feeling that the media acknowledges the player. You know, it's like the book that knows you're reading it as
Yeah.
it's a
Mhm.
very self-aware of their genre for both of them.
But not in a like obnoxious or like not in an obnoxious or an annoying way that you might first encounter this sort of trope where something knows that there's a viewer involved. It's like
But I could see
It-
how
it-
this game anyone could play, but somebody that's played a lot of games would potentially get more out of.
yeah,
Like,
it doesn't
like,
do
oh,
it.
I see that. Yeah.
It doesn't do that acknowledgement directly in the text, but it does it in like just expecting more from you and giving you the tools or the content to get more from you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I will also say like they're drawing on different traditions, but they're both games that are designed to be replayed. There was a Polygon article that was like, you know, New Game Plus based, and Dragon's Dogma was one of the primary examples. This was before Dragon's Dogma came out, but like Dragon's Dogma as a genre really only works if you play it to New Game Plus, and then its themes fully develop, which also is one of the best parts of Dark Souls.
It's hard to
I'm
talk
ready.
about that concept without mentioning Nier Automata, which was the first true introduction to multi-playthrough stuff.
And Armored Core 6 from last year.
Yeah,
Yep,
it's true.
AC6.
Do you think that either of these games do that to the level of Armored Core or Nier Automata? Nier Automata?
I can't put this next to either of these next to Nier Automata in good conscience, but that's just because Nier Automata is like I think my favorite game of all time and one of the
And
best
it's a
ones
much
ever made.
bigger part of Nier Automata's story. Dragon's Dogma
However-
2 has it, but it's not it's not
Yeah.
as much.
But they are definitely both, they're both in that realm of replayability that's meaningful. It's not just double everyone's health and go for it. Like EDF6 has replayability baked directly into the story. Whereas Dragon's Dogma 2 like expects you to do it and grows with it, knows that New Game Plus is for someone who has beaten New Game in all of its aspects, not just let's make it harder for the true diehards, you know.
I would be happy with the gamer's game, or the game that knows it's a game.
I like it.
All right, and let's go to voting. For this one, my vote has to go to Dragon's Dogma 2. And it's more my style. It's more my genre. Like, it's going to be hard for a Clever Diversion to not like the medieval fantasy action game on the table, especially if it's about dragons. You know me. That's my mascot. But yeah, what do you think, Shaunasaur? What's your vote at?
Come back to me. I don't know very much about any of these games.
Okay, but you won't be last. I'm just warning you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. What
I
do you
would happily
think?
go next if you'd like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning towards Earth Defense Force. It just, I don't know. For me, it feels
Ooh.
like the kind of, like, I know that the idea with Dragon's Dogma is it can play on fantasy stereotypes, but at least the part that I saw didn't really convince me of that as strongly. And I just like the comedy drama sort of angle that EDF is going for a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, what do you think, Jacob?
Okay. So to summarize my feelings on Dragon's Dogma 2, is that in 2024, Dragon's Dogma 2 was one of my favorite games that I played. It is also the most disappointing game that I played that whole year.
Oh,
Oof.
yeah.
Both of those things are true. If Dragon's Dogma 2 had lived up to the expectations it itself set by its own opening act and its opening few hours, it would win this entire bracket and it would not be close. But it didn't do that. It ran out of steam far before the end of the game. Well, sort of the end of the game. There is one clever moment I want to give it props for, which is you don't actually see the Dragon's Dogma 2 title screen until you hit the false credits at the end of what is not the second game. And I have not beaten the full actual finale of the game, and maybe it saves itself, but the middle bit being kind of a slog full of kind of the same enemies, in a way that isn't as fun as EDF doing it, makes it so that EDF 6's just constant pleasant surprise and even like shock in a way at some of the stuff that it pulls off and some of the stuff that it does, just surrounded by the strength that is the EDF, like the EDF not brand but like gameplay style. Nothing else does it like this. Nothing else plays like this. And then to take that and truly evolve it into like a next, like a pure game story, I have to give it to EDF.
Yeah. I will say I'm impressed by Dragon's Dogma 2 having another nation that did feel genuinely different. Their changes between biomes, I think, is one of the more impressive feats. And, you know, their boss fights were good, even if their lower level enemies were samey and kind of bland if they've been.
Oh, yeah.
All right, what do you think for Line Arc Line?
Actually, could I go next since I don't want to be
Sorry.
last? You said I wouldn't be last.
Sorry, I forgot.
Okay. I think I'm going to have to give it to Dragon's Dogma 2, partially because of what you've said about the storytelling of it and the like design of that first bit being astounding, even if the whole game doesn't hold up to that, because from the sounds of it, it's a very, very long game, and I feel like for any game, keeping the flow consistent and strong, if you have a really strong opening, is hard if not impossible, especially for like a long-running fantasy kind of game. But I like how they played on the fantasy genre and on the storytelling, and I think a point against it is that, at least when it was first released, it put beauty above functionality, but it sounds like they quickly were able to fix that, which is good.
Sort of, for the most part.
Yeah, sort of for the most part. But
goodness,
yeah, this one was
forgot.
hard for me because I feel like Earth Defense Force is such a game that I don't think I've like seen very much before, with the gameplay and the storytelling being kind of just silly and fun and time travel, but also multiplayer shenanigans. It sounds very good.
Yeah, it's a great multiplayer with friends experience. All right, Line Arc Line. It looks like we're at 2-2. What's your deciding vote?
So
Don't forget that Dragon's Dogma had real recordings of real meat cooking for
That's
some
true.
reason.
I did
Yeah,
mention it
in the
was
middle-
real meat.
That was such a great thing to have as a surprise. Is you're playing this whole game, it's very serious, very dark, and then when it's time to be like, okay, now you have to rest in your camp, and there's an actual Japanese man cooking like a beautifully marbled steak, like pan frying it in butter, and I'm like, oh, that's amazing.
That's a
it's
real
not-
steak.
It's not CG. It's a real video
Yeah.
of real meat being actually cooked, because they did it
And-
on a hike while they were learning about how like hiking and adventure works to make the game, and they fried the meat and they filmed it and said this would look great, and then they just never made a CG version. They just made it.
I mean,
They
there's
just
something
put
to
it
be
in
said
the real
about
video.
something to be said about developer efficiency.
And they change what the meat is. Like when it changes in the game, they have different pictures of it. It's so good.
This is a difficult decision because I haven't put a significant amount of time into either of these games, and the thing that will swing my vote is the one looking at the gameplay of both of these right now the one I'd like to put my time into. And Earth Defense Force looks genuinely fun and varied, and like the moment-to-moment gameplay is something I'd like to explore. I fear that Dragon's Dogma tried to do a lot, and I see myself getting stuck with Dragon's Dogma in the same way that I got stuck with other Bethesda games, of just quest
I agree with that.
fatigue and inventory management and just all of these aspects that I don't find particularly fun in a game. And to cap it all off, I haven't been convinced that the story is worth pursuing. I think the first one had a very interesting story with the subversion of the game. And I definitely think that this one is going to, follow the same goals of, making a worthwhile story that does something that you don't expect. But I just kind of don't trust it to. And maybe that's on me. But my vote is going to go towards Earth Defense Force because
Right.
I kind of want to try it out, and that sways my vote.
Well, congratulations to Earth Defense Force pulling out a strong, narrow victory over Dragon's Dogma. All right, so that brings us on to our next round, which is going to be Nobody Wants to Die and Star Citizen.
Shall we do the bracket first?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get Carbon Speed Dating. Will you please describe Nobody Wants to Die? Because
Yeah,
nobody does.
happily. So Nobody Wants to Die is a techno noir, like alternate future New York City, where you're playing as a detective in a city where basically they've eliminated death, sort of. So you can instead transfer your consciousness to a new body. And a lot of the mysteries in the game surround that concept. Like, it's a very well explored concept. It's a very well realized world. I would argue that one of its weaknesses is it's kind of gameplay light, but the narrative is top notch.
All right, absolutely. So what I'm bringing is Star Citizen, which is an infamous game. As a Kickstarter back in, I think, 2013, was it? Rather Sunless will have to correct me on that one. But it is an MMO that technically you can play for $45. And then you can also spend, I think, $45,000 to unlock all of it for you. And the store just lets you do that. That's something that they do. But in the good parts, it is the only flight simulator MMO, basically, where there's a huge focus on real fidelity and the graphics look gorgeous and beautiful. Everything around it is dripping with, I guess, atmosphere, I think would be the best word for it. It's also a huge open sandbox MMO, which means that all of the things that happen are things you make happen with your guild. I highly recommend joining a guild when you do it. But yeah, it's a game that has taken up a lot of my time in the last year, and it's been a really beautiful journey to get used to learning. It's very hard to learn. Most of it you have to do online through content creators. But yeah, it's an experience like no other. Me and like the guild that I run with employ like real life spying techniques in order to figure out like where the merchants and traders are in the server so that we can go and pirate them. You make your own ambushes. Yeah, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous thing. All right. But why did you bring Nobody Wants to Die? Carbon Speed Dating.
Yeah. So something that I wanted to mention too is that for me, like the number one genre I'm always looking for in games is choose your own adventure, multiple ending sort of thing. And somehow this game really slipped me by. Like I was shocked to find it when I was just scrolling through the summer sale, I believe, and it looked right up my alley. And I'm not entirely sure why I didn't get more love than it did because it's excellent. It's gorgeous. A lot of times, all the visuals you're seeing in this trailer, like they're well represented in the game. Like it's not an in-engine cutscene by any means, but it is very close to it in the game. It's well voice acted. Like I mentioned before, it's gorgeous for fans of cyberpunk. I feel like, especially if you want to move out of just pure punk cyberpunk, this is a really great alternative for like that more noir, grounded feel. Also quite absurd and quite upsetting in parts of its narrative, because while they've developed technology that allows you to transfer your consciousness to inherently to basically live forever if you'd like. They didn't invent new bodies, so you're basically swapping your consciousness with someone else's, and that creates a lot of fun narrative points. But also argue that in general, with mystery stories, they're always fun when they're used as an exploration vehicle. This is something that Asimov did a lot in his original robot series, where basically you let the mysteries be the result of whatever weird thing is happening in the world. So it's a marvelous game. I'd highly recommend it to anyone who hasn't played it, but also I recommend it to folks who haven't even necessarily seen it. Because I know, like I said, it passed me by.
You starting to talk about this game is, I am surprised that I've seen none of this because it looks right up my alley.
It's like I said, it's kind of gameplay light in the sense that you have choices you make in the game when you're walking around. There's an interesting time manipulation mechanic in the game that you can kind of see in the trailer where you're rewinding and fast forwarding through like an event or a death to sort of figure out what happened and what set off things. But it's done in the service of its narrative. Like I said, it's very much a narrative first. It feels very much like playing a movie. So recommend it for that alone.
Would you compare the gameplay to something else that I have played, like Return of the Obra Dinn or maybe like a straightforward, storyteller? I think walking sim is a bit insulting, but
I don't think walking sim is I go out of my way to look for walking sims. I actually find them to be a very fun part of the gaming genre because it's basically hey, if you don't make your game good, this will be, or if you don't make your world interesting, walking sims don't work. But something like Obra Dinn can remain interesting, where essentially all you're doing is walking around. Yeah, I would argue that's probably the closest comparison is Obra Dinn, especially given its time travel mechanics. But in terms of general, for the rest of it, that one mechanic is more Obra Dinn, but for the rest of it, it's more similar to, I mean, a lot of, say, Life is Strange or Telltale games, like there are choices that affect narrative and other characters. So, yeah, it's kind of a combination of that one mechanic and then mostly a choice-based game. And your choices involve if you'd like to be, like a shady noir detective, which is how I was playing it.
Yeah, I love like mystery storytelling games, so I'm also surprised that I haven't come across this one before, but it looks awesome.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. I like the time period. It's very much going for like an alternate, so it's super far-flung future. I think it's like the 2340 something, but it's done with a 19 sort of 50s aesthetic mixed with that hyper sci-fi look. It's very nice. It's very pretty. Also, an aesthetic I haven't seen very much of, surprisingly.
Yeah, same. Like the only thing that reminds me of is kind of Blade Runner-esque in that it's like sci-fi noir. But even then, like the 1920s aesthetic is something that I don't really see many people do for sci-fi.
Yeah, I suppose the only comparison I could think of would be something like some of the BioShock games. But even that is doing kind of... This is very much, when I say noir, think noir first. It's doing all the classic noir tropes in the best possible way. Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of the... Well, in, I guess, genre blending, I think that... Star Citizen also has a kind of a identity crisis of genre, basically, where it doesn't know like quite what it's going to create for itself. It's a little bit like Mad Max grunge punk with the new universe that they made, A lot of the reasons that I'm bringing Star Citizen is because it's kind of the first time where it's actually playable as a game. They've finally put in server meshing and basically server crash recovery, so that when you do, the server notoriously has crashed for years and years and years in Star Citizen, but now when it does, you just wait about 30 seconds and then it comes back. So they've made a huge amount of progress in the last year since I've started playing it, and that's really heartening to finally see become part of this long anticipated title. Is it's finally getting good.
Yeah, my impression of the game was that the world itself can be a little bit of a mishmash of different sort of tones, different genres, all that stuff. But in particular, I really was a big fan of their aesthetic design on their ships, which I get the impression is a big focus.
Yeah.
It's really pretty. That's the thing, is
Mhm.
when you're in that world, it's very immersive.
Yeah, like a thing that I really enjoy, and maybe we'll have a trailer for one. But they make like car trailers for all of the ships as if they're real ships, made copying the aesthetics of real car commercials.
Yeah.
And I just think that's so clever and immersive and very
And beautifully
'cause
done.
it is a thing that you can buy. It's like they want you to be enticed by this shiny new ship with all these bells and whistles and the shiny little things on the side and the cool bathroom.
And the people that they get to make those trailers are real advertising companies that work in the car industry. Like,
That's
that's
gotta be
why
a fun
they look like
challenge for
that.
them.
It's because they just hire those exact people.
Why not? They
That's-
exist.
That's something I want to talk about here with Star Citizen, which is like, it has been going for a long time, and at this point is the most expensive game.
Yeah.
Period.
800 million as
develop?
of 2 days ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wait, to develop? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's the most money that has ever been spent on a video game. And it is. I have some issues with its monetization, and it's how it's developed. I think that, though clearly it's very successful because it raised a ton of money and is clearly like doing work that is making a interesting and one of a kind game, but it is also doing it by, I would say, irresponsible and occasionally downright dangerous monetary practices, in a way that I don't want to work for the people that made Star Citizen. I do not want to work for Cloud Imperium Games. I would have wanted to work on Nobody Wants to Die, but because of the way the Star Citizen is funded, it feels icky. Like, the fact that I could take my $25 shuttle that I bought back in college in 20 whatever, however many years ago it was that I bought that thing, kickstarting this game, and fly around and immediately run into someone flying a 10,000 real dollar spaceship that they bought and did not earn in game, is that feels bad. That's a feel bad moment. I don't like that.
They only get ships in the
yeah.
game?
I mean, they
It is
only
not the only
go up-
way.
Okay.
It is not the
I
only
think
way.
they go up to,
The Idris is
Well-
10K. The Idris is 10K.
yeah. I mean, you can't play the Aegis right now, but in the future you will probably be
That's
able
another
to.
thing worth talking
Yeah,
about.
that's somehow even worse. That I could run into someone driving a bad ship that has spent $10,000 on a very good ship that they cannot fly because it does not exist yet.
Well,
Do you
the
mind
Aegis
if
is
I-
$1,300.
One of them is 10K.
So it brings up the three things that I really don't like about Stardust Citizen, because like Jacob, I'm extremely uncomfortable with the way that this game is monetized. And so the first of the things is that I feel like this game no longer reflects the game. It reflects how rich the people you are playing with, in a way that only egregious microtransactions can represent. And I think that it has immorally taken advantage of people in that regard. Two is the flight mechanics and how every video I have seen of Star Citizen looks like blimp battles. Everyone just kind of moving without any real weight or without any feeling to the game. It doesn't have a soul to the flight, at least not like in these trailers. And three, it seems like the game for crypto bros. Like that is all of the discussion that, you know, every time this game comes up, it feels like someone is trying to sell me on Bitcoin. And
finish what you're gonna say. I have a point I'd like to make with that.
yeah,
though.
so the first one of these that I'd like to expand on is the monetization. And it is such a shame that the advertisements for these ships were the best and most charming content, but they take on a completely different tone when you realize that these are real advertisements that people can spend way, like, an enormous amount of money on. They stop being an art form that is charming and start being just another advertisement. And the fact that they're advertising, whether or not they say that it's an experience that you'll get, or not, they're advertising a feeling that you'll get when you buy this ship, which is not represented in the game itself. And I say that because the wonder of playing video games is video games using difficulty and time and writing to tell a story. And any game that introduces ways to skip that experience inherently encourages people to give them money using the gameplay. And this is for mobile games. This is for Star Citizen. This is for games that have skins. There is not a microtransaction game that doesn't have little hints or reminders or subtle marketing in it that will consistently try and get the user to spend more money. Suddenly, this video game stops being an art form and starts being just marketing, just very attractive marketing. And I have a huge problem with that because video games are a wonderful art form, and being consumed by this, if the games that are worse because they require this writing to encourage further funds, then games will become worse as a whole. That's why I love games like Dark Souls and Elden Ring and any game that you can buy outright, because then the writing is pure. The writing has no hint.
Yeah, can I bring up a
Yes.
bit of a counterpoint though? So I think the problem I come across with this argument is just this idea that, like, my opinion, anything you're willing to spend your time on, it's perfectly fine to spend your money on. And for a lot of people, Star Citizen is like the game that they've been looking forward to. Like, this is something that I know Clever Diversion has told me about, like this sort of game that you've been waiting to play your whole life, and here it is. It's finally here. And yeah, you might be able to find complaints with it from an outside perspective, but I mean, a lot of people play it. Clearly, it's appealing to that desire for a lot of people. And for the amount of hours that people can put into a game like this, you know, it's easily thousands of hours. I don't really see a huge issue. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with that kind of pay to win model. I mean, that's never very much fun, especially in a, you know, an MMO. But I don't love the idea of equating, well, you need to spend money on it, to therefore it's no longer pure art, because that same argument could be made for DLCs, or, you know, something like the sequels or pseudo sequel for Elden Ring, where it's like, yeah, it's still a full price game, but it's technically a sequel. It's
Yeah,
like I don't love the equation. I don't like. I mean, like I said, not to say that Star Citizen's perfect, but I don't love that like equating those two things that strongly.
I have been anticipating this conversation for several months and have prepared some statements. So,
From affirmation
Right.
statements.
well, in this podcast, we compare different types of games, right? Games in different genres, games that are built completely differently, games with massively different scopes, right? We compare indie games to AAA titles that are launching at $70 with continuing DLC for over 120, right? When you were in 2006 and you wanted to buy a year's worth of playing World of Warcraft, that cost you a lot of money, right? It wasn't just $60. It was $60 for the game and then another $60 for the expansion and then about $156 for the monthly subscription for that whole year, right? Star Citizen has no monthly subscription as an MMO. It also is a game that you can start playing today for $45, which is cheaper than a lot of the $60 titles, which this year turned into $70 for their premium releases, right? That's almost half the cost. When we talk about simulator DLCs, right? Like DCS, if you wanted to, we're comparing like one ship of being played in Star Citizen. You're not expected to buy that ship right away. You're expected to kind of over the course of your playtime as you follow the project, buy CCUs, which are often half off coupons to upgrade to the next tier of thing if you want to, which you don't have to do. All of the games, are supposedly in the future going to be purchasable in universe. And a lot of those really, really expensive ships can only be run by an organization anyway, which my guild has many people who, that's part of their job or their volunteer work, you could say, is to house and accumulate the ships that you can't run alone. These are ships that require at least 12 people to crew properly. And yeah, they cost $1,300, but you're not supposed to be footing that entire bill yourself. You're supposed to be splitting that around with the rest of your org, either fundraising if you want to fundraise. It's a lot like Eve.
And yet,
if you
one
wanted
account-
to buy DCS, all of DCS is $3,400. They don't expect you to buy all of DCS, right?
Weren't you saying something recent about the Crusader Kings, where it's like if you actually want to play Crusader Kings, it's like $12, but if you want to play the real Crusader Kings with all the DLC, it's like 500 or something crazy, right?
Yeah, I mean, many games that have that scope are moving in that direction. Like if you wanted to buy all of IL-2 Sturmovik, I think it's like thousands of dollars, like multiple thousands of dollars, because they're sold by the plane, which is how simulators kind of need to be sold or rather it's the modern model for them to keep up with modern pricing, because simulators as a game genre don't get the benefit of having prepackaged game engines. And a lot of the work that Star Citizen has done in the last 6 years was hiring a lot of the people from what's it? It's not Unreal Engine. What was it? Crytek. Yeah, CryEngine. They basically bought most of the CryEngine higher-ups to come work on Star Engine and come over
Which
to
is
CIG
CryEngine.
to work for them for over 5 years. And with this newest release that came out in December, their work is finally somewhat completed, and many of them are moving on to other projects because they did get server meshing. Like, this game isn't just a normal $60 title. It's the culmination or the fulfillment of what many old 90s simulator gamers wished the genre would go in, and we've been in a desert for like 20 years of no good flight simulators, or I guess space combat simulators coming out. And for us, that's worth the money. And it's also like they're making new things in the gaming space. Like
Okay,
server meshing is a technological marvel.
I want to bring up a few things in response. Because this Star Citizen, in being a fairly unique, one-of-a-kind experience, and being actively developed and changed, brings to mind another game of mine that I used to love very much, and no longer play, but did for a long time, which is Destiny 2. Destiny 2 also has a complicated and difficult to understand pricing model that many call too expensive. Destiny 2 is also an MMO that does not have a monthly subscription, unless you want to call buying the expansion a monthly subscription. But it does not have a standard monthly subscription. Destiny 2 offers a fully unique experience, which is first-person shooter raids at a high level of quality. That does not exist anywhere else. You cannot find it. If you can, tell me, please. Destiny 2, if you want to buy all of it, is $100.
Now, I mean, when
Now-
you were buying all of it, it was closer to 500.
If I'm buying it, yes, if I'm buying it, if at any time you wanted to get into Destiny 2, it was $100 to get up to date. That's how their pricing has worked basically the whole time. If you wanted to stay up to date, yes, it's more expensive. If you want to stay up to date in a lot of things, it's more expensive, like you said, with WoW. But the point is, the cap here, like what I'm paying for, worked the whole time and existed, and also wasn't $1,000 at no point, right?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, they're blending the Kickstarter support us idea with purchasing a finished product game, which I completely acknowledge as a weak part of the argument.
Yes, I happen to remember a long time ago when we were playing MechWarrior Online, and they released gold mech skins for $500 to support their development. And MechWarrior Online was doing its own unique thing that was special gameplay you couldn't get anywhere else. And everyone hated that.
Yeah.
A lot.
I will say,
it got MechWarrior Online sold by its publisher to the developers. It was so bad. And then, like, the thing about Star Citizen is, I think my final argument for why I disagree with the pricing is that I don't think this level of pricing was necessary to make the game we got.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I do want to move on from Star Citizen so we can get to other games because it's been a hot minute. But that's my big point, is I think they are charging, even though what we got is incredible, they're still charging too much for too little.
Well, I will point out, we haven't got it yet, right? The eternal thing with Star Citizen is it's not finished yet, and it's getting better every year, which it is getting better every year. They added a completely different solar system literally a few months ago.
Sure.
They achieved server meshing finally, and the watchword for this year is supposed to be, finally we're focusing on just playability and getting a good experience in the hands of gamers that's they can be proud of. So we'll see if they're able to deliver this year. Squadron 42 is supposed to come out in 2026, at which point a lot of the resources will come back to Star Citizen, or they should, or they're supposed to. This is all like, how much do you believe the company? Which, trust me, Star Citizen fans are some of the most cynical about Chris Roberts and all of their stuff. But at the end of the day, you can play this amazing, unparalleled scope experience for $45. You don't have to spend any of that extra money. A lot of the stuff is better if you don't spend that extra money, because you get to experience the gameplay loop of like free cell or free space, where you like grind up being an independent contractor, and a lot of people, I personally prefer that.
It's not that you have to, it's that they're making the ask in the first place.
Sure. I mean,
you
that's
didn't have to buy the
something that it's a business decision that I disagree with also, right? It'd be a hell of a lot easier to defend the game if the most expensive thing you could get on there is, $1,000 like other games. But I still stand by that, like, other games are doing parts of this with lower scope,
Yeah.
and
And I'm not
it's
paying for those
offering
either.
something that nothing else in the space is offering.
Hmm.
Namely, a competent space shooter that's 6-axis and has. I didn't even get to my other points, which is, the combat is really good. I know Will, said like parts of it look like being a blimp, but when you're in the cockpit, it doesn't feel that way. And also, that's the flight model that they're working on to add atmosphere resistance, so that ships will fly like planes in atmosphere, and they will actually be doing things that look and sound good. They are very aware that right now the flight model is not what they want it to be, and they're adding heat generation in atmosphere so that you can't just hover forever, unless the ship is specifically designed to do that, and you have to use your VTOL thrusters. So like they agree with a lot of the commentary and criticisms that they're doing. And as with all things in the game, it's a work in progress, and they're working on it.
I'd like to see it when it's fully out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Getting better. It's getting better. And I think it's at this point, the reason I brought it is because I think it's worth $45 right now. And that's kind of all I would counsel people to pay, is probably like $125 is what this experience is really worth.
I
But
have
it is worth it.
I have a proposal for the round name, actually,
Ooh.
because I feel
Oh,
like
yeah.
to a certain degree, both games are kind of fulfilling at least somewhat of a similar genre of being kind of like an immersive sim. Because, with the fully fleshed out world in Nobody Wants to Die, which is the part that I was enjoying the most, and like the fact that very often you could solve mysteries without even necessarily having all the gameplay mechanics even getting in the way. You could track clues yourself, sort of stuff. And Star Citizen having literally being essentially immersive sim the video game. So
Yeah,
I
and they're both like gorgeous sci-fi games.
Yeah, they both look amazing.
I
Yeah.
did come up with a potential title that I think is somewhat catchy.
Yeah?
It's Finally Time.
Yeah.
Finally.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good.
I like
See,
that.
that's
I like
good.
that.
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
Yeah. For reference, if you want to buy all of IL-2 Sturmovik, it's $1,500.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yikes. Yeah, I'm not buying that either.
Yeah.
I know, but flight sim fans are, and
I know.
we
I know.
I
we
will say
haven't
too,
had good games since the 90s for flight sims. Like, it's a whole genre of gamer that just like was neglected forever.
and Sunless, I would like to say, like, I don't want to stay on this topic too much longer because I know we should move on. But
Yeah.
we were just talking the other day about how like games probably should cost more than $70, though.
Yeah, they
Like,
probably.
I'm not
should cost-
disagreeing with like it shouldn't cost $10,000, but it should probably cost more than 70. Given the
There's
amount of development work involved and just
Yeah.
it's an expensive process to make a game, even a short game.
yeah. Don't get me wrong. This is not me being a cheapskate. I play Path of Exile. It's expensive
Yeah.
for being free. It's just it's sort of like what is it like obscenity? You know it when you see it.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
Star Citizen gives me the monetary. Yeah.
Monetary McCarthyism.
Yeah.
We should move on to voting for
Yep.
this
All
round.
right.
Also.
We got to do it. It's finally time. Okie doke. Shaunasaur, do you have a strong opinion at the beginning?
I feel like, yeah, I think for me, I'm gonna vote for Star Citizen because even though I agree that the pricing structure isn't something that I would do myself, but I understand the different culture of flying sim games. Watching Clever Diversion play this game throughout the year and telling me about it, like, he would come to me and say, like, yeah, my pirate guild went and, like, we smuggled all these things off of these other ships, and then my other friends and I went and did this other little quest, and, like, I've never felt this same kind of energy from any MMO. The idea that, like, basically given what seems almost like a blank canvas, people have come together and been like, okay, we're just gonna play cops and robbers now, but in space. And people just made that happen, and there's pirate guilds that have just sprung up because that's fun for people to play. and there's smuggling guilds, and there's people who are just trying to do a good hard day's work on the farm, and
Yep.
everybody's
Salvagers.
interacting with each other in this like very realistic and interesting way. And to me, that's what makes MMOs good, is when the game kind of mimics life in that fun little microcosm.
Yeah. All right. What do you think, Will? Or sorry, Light Earth Line.
It's all
Can I
good.
anticipate your vote?
Yes, you may. But I'm very curious about Nobody Wants to Die. It looks like it brings something new to a story, something that I've never seen before. And I love writing and I love games that that promise something different and new, because I can tell that they're also interested in writing about this concept.
Yeah, I know you're partial to like cyberpunk concepts, and it's a genre that isn't that well represented, weirdly enough. It's kind of Cyberpunk 2077, and give me a minute, I'll think of another one.
Right?
And it's nice to see more different ideas in that genre.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So, Rather Sunless, can we also anticipate your vote?
I do want to say a few things. And I'll be
Okay.
nice. I'll be nice.
Please
this
do.
time.
Please do.
So, of these two games, I know for certain, well, almost certain, I am going to play Star Citizen. I promised. I promised Clever Diversion several years ago that I would play Squadron 42 when it finally came out, and I hold to that. I promised myself, out of excitement, back in 2012, when I paid
Yeah.
$25 on a Kickstarter, that I would play Squadron 42 when it came out, and I'm going to hold myself to that. I checked, by the way. I still have my shuttle. I bought
Nice.
it in October of 2012 on a
Wow.
solid oak table in the basement of the engineering quad of the college that I went to. I remember it fondly. So of these two games, there is one I'm guaranteed to play. However, that's not in 2024. I'm not going to play it. Star Citizen, I am excited to experience at its height. I want to experience it at its best. And that its best isn't here yet. And it might not ever be here. Nobody Wants to Die is a game I hadn't heard about until a week ago. And I'm very excited to play it and experience its story in one way or another. And having a game like that be both experienced in 2024 and in such a way that makes me want to, like, I immediately went and added it to my wish list so that I can get it. And I'm going to recommend it to people who want a story game, full-throated, without any sort of qualms or anything. So in 2024, I have to give the nod to Nobody Wants to Die. However, that does not mean that Star Citizen cannot win in a later year when it's actually out.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, Carbon Speed Dating. You want to enter
Yeah.
yours?
I mean, I'm still gonna go with Nobody Wants to Die, just because I had a lot of fun playing it. It is maybe not intentionally in parts, but like it can be unintentionally very funny, or maybe it's intentional. It's sometimes hard to tell with like when you get super gritty noir, and
Yep.
whether or not I'm supposed to find that a little funny. But I had nothing but a good time playing it, and like I said before, it's absolutely gorgeous. Its alternate vision of New York is great. They turned the Statue of Liberty into a trash dump. It's great.
Nice.
I think it deserves more love than I've been seeing it get. Like, I'm just shocked that more people aren't aware of it. I mean, to be fair, I wasn't either until like last summer, but still.
Yep. Okay. So I'm the last one, and you know me. I'm gonna vote for Star Citizen. I do kind of regret that a lot of the time ended up being towards the monetization of the game, but I think that is one of its black marks. The good part of the game is what it has allowed the community to do. As Shaunosaur said, like having very light quest structure means that you're highly incentivized to come up with your own ideas about how to make money in this universe. And that is really, really cool. In a lot of ways, this is exactly what I've wanted MMOs to be. It's something I enjoyed about The Isle, where it's kind of a bare bones, hands off gaming structure where you individually get to be creative and come up with clever ideas or things that no one else has thought about yet. And there's just nothing quite like the immersion that brings, where you're, in a lot of ways in modern gaming, kind of a quest marker follower person. And it's something I really value about Morrowind is that it asks of your creativity, and Star Citizen does that too. The amount of stories that I have of literal individual ideas that I've had and things that I've been able to pull off that I run to either tell Cora and Shaunasaur and or Will if he'll listen, are, you
And
know,
he told me to.
like they're so good. Like they're so funny and so wonderful. Like that's how I want gaming to be in the future. And it is within your fingertips. You know, it's $45, and if you ever want a account code, just hit me up. It's on Clevered Versions info for their YouTube, and we both get benefits. So that's the thing. Is I think it's also the dreams of gamers. It's our hope for the future.
I want it to be good.
No, I have a great title round for this actually. Was it like do gamers dream of electric sheep?
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. I'll leave it there. Although I do want to do a whole podcast on it. All right. So our next round will be Magic the Gathering Arena versus Balatro, the War of the Card Games.
Extremely loud, incorrect buzzer.
Yeah.
Balatro. It's
Yeah.
Balatro.
Evidently, it's Balatro. I learned that
We learned
today.
that today.
Really?
I'm the one representing Balatro here.
All right.
Did he make up the name, or is it like a different language or something?
I think it's Latin.
It's Latin. Okay. Do you know what it means?
Uh,
I'll look it up. Why
it
don't you do your
clever?
intro? Why don't you do your introduction? I'll look it up.
It translates to clown or jester in Latin.
Oh, okay.
All right. So I guess I'll start. Magic the Gathering Arena is a place where you can play Magic the Gathering online with random strangers or your friends. Yeah, it's, you know, Magic the Gathering. You're a nerd, right? Magic the Gathering is the ultimate king of nerd card games. It's been going since the 90s, 80s maybe? I think 90s. And you can play it for yourself. It has all the cards that are printed, as well as a whole set of things that aren't, that are just for digital, and have rules that can only be achieved in the digital space. And they have most of the formats that you would expect, although some of them are pretty difficult to get. But yeah, that's pretty much it. All right, Line, what is Balatro?
Balatro is the latest in my favorite genre, which is applying a roguelike structure to something I never would have expected. Roguelikes are, of course, the type of game where if you die or lose, you have to start from the beginning. But it's different every time.
Nope, I think you cut out there for a second.
Oh, no. Okay. Well, I'll try again. Roguelikes are one of my favorite genres because it applies real stakes to gameplay. I came across roguelikes when I had been exhausted by Skyrim and Fallout and all of these Bethesda games, and I was quick save sick, and I wanted a game that I actually cared about, that I actually felt pressured to do well in, and roguelikes had that result for me. And Balatro is that roguelike structure of if you die, you have to start from the beginning, but they're short, bite-sized runs that are always so different from each other. And Balatro applies that concept to poker in a way, kind of a poker solitaire. In my opinion, it is the ideal phone game, which later I will talk about why that is suddenly so important to me.
So
All right.
it's a plane game, I say affectionately. A game you can
Yeah.
play on the plane really well.
The premise of Balatro is you are making poker hands in a solitaire fashion, and you have to, each of these poker hands is worth points. You make enough points, you win the round, and you go on to the next stage. But the thing that makes it so unique is that you can modify everything about how this game is played. You can modify the cards that you have in the deck. You can make them, you can have a 27 of diamonds. You can have, you can erase, you can scrub the suit off of a card to make flushes more easy to achieve because it counts as every suit. You can make certain cards worth more or multiply your score. But where it really shines is the jokers. And the knockoff on iOS was called Joker Poker, which I think is a very catchy name. And the jokers modify the experience to such a degree that no two games look alike. And then you get into the fact that you can actually modify the jokers too. It just gets out of hand, and I love roguelikes that get out of hand, and that's Balatro.
Honestly, Joker Poker is a more catchy name than Balatro.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. I played a lot of Balatro for a certain, I guess, fever season in the summer when everyone else was catching on to it. It was fun. It's certainly a dopamine factory. I didn't really get a good grasp of what the end, I guess, after like 10 hours was. I think it's unlock all of the jokers and then all of the card backings, which I guess that is, you improve your own knowledge of how to get certain styles of play.
I ran into this as well. And then I looked at the percentage of the game that I had completed. And even with all of my time, which is a lot of time, I have only completed maybe 12% of the game according to its percentage. And I know that it might seem at first glance like it doesn't have as much content as other roguelikes, but I think the content is slower. And I would agree it doesn't have as much content as some of the, in my opinion, best roguelikes of all time, such as Enter the Gungeon, or I was going to say
Hades
the game.
there? Is Hades there, or is that a roguelike?
So that is a good question. There are two subgenres. There's roguelite and roguelike. I have never been fully clear. I believe a roguelite is one where with each run, you improve slightly and improve your abilities in the run following. You unlock more things that you can find in the world, or you increase your stats in little ways that help you over time. And in that case, Balatro is a roguelite because there is this meta progression of the game changes. You can play it for a year, and over the course of that year, the game will change.
Again.
Oh, really? Am I cutting out for anyone else?
Yeah, you're not cutting out for us.
Okay.
Please,
Not at all.
Okay.
So it has that meta progression, which I require in a roguelike.
Definitely.
I don't like losing and feeling kind of cheated out of that time. And with roguelites, I never really feel like I fail because even a loss propels me forward a certain amount.
Yeah,
Excellent.
I enjoyed my time with Balatro, and maybe I'll give it another reassessment of how big it was. I just got that feeling where I was like, I feel like I'm like 80% done with this.
For sure. So
Yeah, I
go ahead.
I've played Magic the Gathering non-arena. I've played Magic the Gathering physical, and Balatro. Neither are entirely my cup of tea, so you may take what I say with a whole deck of salt. But I definitely they're both very interesting games. Balatro both for its like pure dopamine number go up kind of energy, and Magic the Gathering for the unhinged amount of depth that it has.
Yeah,
And
depth that no player has yet discovered that is still in there and won't
is-
for several years.
that is still in there. However, my question here is, we all know Balatro. Tell me about Magic the Gathering Arena specifically. I know
Yeah.
Magic. I don't know Arena.
So
What is Arena?
my pitch is just Magic the Gathering is, I think, a nerd badge of honor in some ways. And the thing that's kept me out of it forever is money. It costs money to do. It costs sometimes more money than
A lot.
I would like. Now,
Star
granted,
Citizen.
if you just play a red deck, it doesn't have to be expensive, and you can beat every other deck with it. But if you really get into Magic and you start caring, kind of like Star Citizen is, it can be as expensive as you want it to be, and it will let you do that. It will let you spend way too much money on it. And Arena fixes this problem by giving you a bunch of free digital card packs for just playing the game or doing daily quests. Now, granted, there's, criticisms about the monetization where they're, always asking you to give more. But honestly, the battle passes last about half a year and they're like $40. So in terms of continual gameplay for like the whole year, I think you can get away with the whole year for like $120 if you buy all of the things. And you also don't have to. Like the game, there's a lot of reviews on Steam that are like, oh, you have to buy the battle pass, and if you don't, you'll always lose. That's not been my experience at all, especially if you're willing to play red or black. So in that way, it's free access to one of the most, I would say, complex, certainly well-funded, and I do think well-designed games that nerds have access to. It's also this space for some of the best fantasy art that you've ever seen in your life. And if you care about that stuff, then this is hundreds, if not thousands, of new examples of that every year.
And every kind of genre you could imagine, too. Like,
Exactly.
they just did one for like a punk battle bike thing.
Yeah. And if it
versus
goes
the Red
to,
Ball one.
If it goes to later seasons, we could talk about like some of the controversies that are happening in Magic the Gathering in this year for IP licensing or the future of Magic the Gathering. But the truth is, it's getting a lot of money. It's getting more popular as it goes, not less. The numbers are going up. And if you're a nerd and you like card games, it's very difficult to compete with the amount of support and resources that Magic the Gathering brings to bear. And it's also just damn fun. Like this, for me, this was my, game that I can afford to put down whenever work gets crazy. And it's just like a time sink daily activity for me. And it's done really, really well for that. Does anyone else have any opinions or thoughts on Magic the Gathering Online?
I will say that something that appeals to me about the digital version is what you were saying, though. Just like the idea of getting into something this big, this late, is pretty intimidating. But just getting into a digital version of it, very, very accessible. I appreciate the effort that I've seen that they seem to have put into it as well.
Yeah, a thing that I enjoy about it is that like I have tried playing Magic, the physical card game, many, many times in my life, and it's fun and it's good, and I like the art on the cards, and having a physical shiny thing in your hand is always fun and nice. Um, but remembering all the steps in every single turn and every single card's abilities and when it triggers and what happens and all the in-between steps and when you can cast different kinds of cards, it's so complicated that it makes the game not fun for me. And I end up just being like, oh, okay, I'd rather just collect these pretty cards, thanks. But Magic Arena does actually allow me to sort of enjoy the flow of the game without worrying about missing a step somewhere.
Exactly. I'm so glad you brought that up because that is my primary reason for enjoying the digital version of all card games. One of the reasons I went to Hearthstone is it does all the math for you and it does all the rules remembering and rules lawyering for you. It's so that it just distills down the good decisions which are at the heart of the game. You know, it just makes you making meaningful decisions the video game instead of, you know, worrying if your opponent is cheating or not applying some of the text of the card or things like that. Like that was always the thing that kept me out of Magic physical as a copy, and I'm still out of physical Magic. I don't play physical Magic because I don't want to have to deal with the emotions behind whether someone is thinking that they apply this rule in this way versus how you think about it, and there's an incentive at the table for their way to be correct, and then you have to call over a judge, and then if there's no judge, then did you lose? You know, it just gets really gross and complicated emotionally for me, and I just don't. I'd rather have the computer do it for me.
Mm-hmm.
My hesitation with Magic has always been the direct attachment of United States currency to the ability to play in the game. I am really relieved that this offers ways to play the game that are less attached to that process and less pressured to, you know, a less direct line between I'm excited about this concept, but in order to apply it, I need to pay very specific people money. Or even just, you know, as soon as scalpers get into the equation, I start to question whether something is this looks like a good implementation. And I'd say it's about time. I think that Hearthstone as a event in gaming history kind of kicked a lot of these card game companies into gear with sudden expectations of user experience during gameplay and identifying what is a fun or easy to learn game and why do you want a digital board game. And I'm relieved that people are catching up, especially the most prolific card game of all, which is inarguably Magic the Gathering. There's no larger.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is kind of a clash of titans, though, now that you bring it up about like the card game that is the oldest, which is kind of poker in a lot of ways. It's like hundreds of years old. And Magic the Gathering, which is a newer card game for nerds, but also has a huge amount of money and support and momentum behind it, you know?
I feel like Balatro cannot be called poker in any sense.
Yeah,
Sure, but the only reason you know the rules of Balatro is because you are familiar with poker rules.
Yeah,
it's called
and also
open
tarot
quote,
and
poker, close
also.
Sure, I mean, but
yeah,
like a hand, right? Like what is a straight? What is a flush?
It
you know,
does
like
bring up
that's poker.
The classic card games, yes.
Which out of both of these, there is a theme of currency. one of these games you can buy outright for $5, and I think it is a phenomenal. I have bought it twice. I bought it once on PC and once on iOS as soon as it came out, because recently I've been commuting for a large portion of my life, and being on public transportation, I've found no game more well suited to mobile play than Balatro. And the fact that it doesn't have these little like, hey, you just died. Maybe we could forgive you this once if you just give us $1. It's that easy. It is nothing like that. It escapes the traps of mobile gaming in such a wonderful and effortless way that it makes me relieved that it escaped those problems so effectively.
Yeah. I also want to praise it. I mean, it got to one of the latest, like, in the video game awards in December. It was
Like,
up there
Battle
with
4.
everyone else, and I was surprised to see it, but I was happy.
Mm-hmm.
People really like it. And to be fair, so I've played Magic the Gathering all year, and I've spent $30 on it. That's all I've spent on it. So depending on how much Balatro is on each of the platforms, those are somewhat comparable prices.
It's close. Balatro is $12 on Steam currently.
Yeah. So if you buy it twice, $24.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, just pretty normal pricing by the sound of it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, do you want to move to voting?
Wait, no,
Well-
we need to name the round.
Oh, that's right.
I've been coming
had-
up with a good name.
I have a
Oh,
suggestion.
I have
want
one
it
as
to be.
well.
I want it to be beaten by these other two, but I do want to start with something.
Go
just so I
for
can
it.
get it
Yeah.
out here, and I don't say the lame one. I want to call it an old hand.
Ooh.
And that's good.
That's
I
better
was
than mine.
mine was Money Go Up Simulator.
Yeah.
That's also good.
Collecting the cards is a big part.
Yeah.
I was thinking something along the lines of Heart of the Cards or
Oh,
the Magician, a tarot card that is in Balatro and is also
that's
Ah,
magic.
the magician.
It is
The
magic.
Arcana in Balatro
Yeah.
is also magic. That's great.
it's less funny than the others, but it's fun.
Yeah, a magician's hand, maybe.
Yeah.
A magician's heart.
Mine was it's
Oh.
cards, but I think
It's
I
hard.
think that should go down the drain right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think a magician's hand or magician's heart. Yeah, I mean,
Royal Flush, I don't know.
people like cards games, people like collecting cards. Playing cards is one of the oldest gamer tools.
Cards,
And
cards.
the idea of a card being,
Oh my gosh.
it's an expression of fate, it's an expression of chance, it's an ability to use your mind on some system, some situation, and that's all gamers want,
Mhm.
We want a chance to show how smart we are, how cool we are.
Could do a straight up reference to the tarot and make it the magician reversed.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
good.
I feel like that works better because the Magician doesn't reference the cards directly. I feel like reversed,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Yeah, it more directly references tarot. I enjoy that.
All right. Well, Cora, which side of the fence do you think you're on?
I think I'm leaning towards Magic. I've played Balatro. I had a hard time kind of getting into it. I still play it on the plane, for instance, but I don't know. I don't think it does a great job of explaining how to play. I've played it, I don't know, a couple of hours now, and I still don't understand the purpose of the tarot cards or the planet cards or whatever. So it's not really my cup of tea when it comes to games, so I'm not surprised. But yeah, so I'm leaning towards Magic because I love the art.
All right. What do you think, Sunless?
Oh, these are really close.
Mhm.
In an interesting way, because they're both sixes. Uh,
Wow.
Ow,
Okay.
ow.
hey, it's above a 5. Both because I have, as a lifelong nerd, I have been around Magic since I've known other nerds, and I have known that whole time that I don't really like it all that much, and playing it isn't as fun as I would like it to be, because I would love to make friends and with magic people and play that and be good at it. But I don't actually
Many of your
like it.
friends are magic people.
Many of my friends are magic people, and I straight up work with several of the most famous magic people in the world, and I am not lying. But that
Oh, yeah.
doesn't matter because I've played it 100 times and I've had fun for some of those times. Whereas Balatro, which was an incredible time for the first 10 hours, before all the shiny glitz and numbers and pings and all that dopamine, good dopamine noises slowly drained out, and I was left with somewhat random poker roguelike, which had a lot of depth and was very interesting and good and absolutely deserves all the accolades it gets, nonetheless failed to hold my interest past beating the game with a couple of decks. But it was a darn good time the whole time. So we have, on one hand, the most approachable and accessible version of a game I don't particularly like, and an incredibly well-made, an incredibly polished version of a game that petered out after about 10 hours for me. So where does this lie? How do I choose?
Yeah.
And I hate being so negative on these.
That's all right. It's just not
I
your cup of
like
tea.
it. Please keep
I also
going.
want to bring up like a small thing that should have been in the discussion section, but I'm sorry. One of these is made by one guy,
Yeah.
It's true.
and the
Got it.
other one is like one of the largest gaming nerd corporations on the planet, with representing like hundreds of thousands of people's effort and time.
Mm-hmm. I think, honestly, given that, I have to give it to Balatro because the thing that tips me over the edge for Balatro is that it dominated a lot of the gaming discussion in 2024.
Oh yeah, I remember.
One of the most played games,
Oh my
period,
god.
during that time.
If you look at new releases right now on Steam, it's just all Balatro, but it's a slot machine now. Like it's
Yeah.
very, very influential in
And
modern
it spawned,
gaming.
yeah, immediate
Casino game, indie game.
thousands of copycats that are never going to be as good.
Nope.
But I do have to give it to Balatro for its impact over the year, if nothing else.
All right. I could go next if that's all right. Yeah, I have never played Balatro, but I am very excited to do so. I've played many a hand of poker in my time, and it seems like a very chaotic and silly game, which I very much enjoy. And I am very familiar with Magic. Both of my partners absolutely adore Magic and play it a ton. And I love the art and the world and the lore and the creative thinking that goes into the cards. And one of my best friends literally works for Magic and does their translations. And like, it's a very special game, I think, in the world. But like Sunless, I have never fully had as much fun playing it as I think I should. Maybe I'm just missing something, maybe it's just not for me. And I do love how Arena is, I think, one of the best versions of Magic because it is accessible both monetarily and with the structure of the game. It's easy to learn and get into. And even so, even though I have tried Arena, I still haven't gotten into it as much as I would like to. And so maybe for me, Magic is more the art and the world and the story rather than the actual physical game itself. And maybe that's okay. Maybe I'm just a lore nerd for Magic. And so I think I'm going to give it to Balatro because, like we said, it's made by one guy. The art is also unique and interesting. The music I've probably listened to a lot, even though I haven't played the game. I just really like the
theme.
music.
Mm-hmm.
It's good. It's catchy. And I think that it does something different, whereas Magic Arena is sort of a polished version of a thing that already exists. Balatro is something that's its own capsule of art that doesn't exist anywhere else.
All right, Line, you want to enter in your sovereign vote?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going for Balatro. I did bring it, but That's not the only reason. And honestly, my opinion of it has somewhat changed after hearing your opinions of it. Like, it is difficult to find a perfect commuting video game. There's a great article by Polygon on what makes the ideal phone game and several rules it must abide by. And I think Balatro is probably the best suited to this that I've seen so far. However, it is difficult, and I find my desire to play it repeatedly getting less over time. Granted, when was it released? Like about a year ago? Like, it took a year. But it's not as it's kind of hard. And I'm getting up against some of the challenges in it that are encouraging me less to complete them. And I think that I may get over a hump, but for now it's a little more difficult. And I agree about that. With Magic, it's so difficult to separate, Magic the Gathering Arena, the video game implementation, and the card game that's existed for so long, which
I completely agree.
I don't like the card game, and I really tried to like it, but it resulted in some of the worst social experiences I've had in my life. And it really soured my opinion of the game and the and some of the people it attracts. I'm definitely not saying, not all Magic the Gathering play, but like there's
No, we know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
No, we know what you're talking. You don't have to
played
finish.
Magic.
You don't have to finish the sentence,
Yeah.
line. We know what you're talking about.
It's rough because in another life, and where Magic the Gathering was a different company, and the cards were merit based instead of monetary based, I might have been more into that game. Man, this.
Well,
okay,
so
I'm going to skip in this trailer to some actual gameplay because I realized that this person, it has not shown it.
While you do that, I will say, like, some of the things that Arena alters or brings to the table is direct addresses to those same complaints, right?
That's
Which
great.
is all of the things that can be said to you are selected from a list Hearthstone style so that it cuts down on the toxicity. It doesn't eliminate it because someone can say nice hand over and over and over and over and over again to you, which is pretty,
What a save.
you get the point that they're annoyed with
Of course,
you.
yeah.
But also, like, when you complete the daily challenges, which is fundamentally just by playing the game and then also a separate one for just winning, you do get free packs, right? Most
That's
of the
great.
packs that you get are free and completely disconnect from the monetization. Of course, you can pay more to get more, but that's kind of video game companies nowadays anyway. So,
Well,
it does address many of those
not
points that, like,
Balatro.
it is merit based, your access to the cards.
Mhm.
I'd say 80%, unless you just are a whale and spend hundreds of dollars on it.
It's true. And like these aspects of keeping up with the Joneses and the manipulation of people's, desires and considerations of what's normal, aside, it looks like a solid implementation of that game. And it is a relief to know, that it's not drowning out there, which it seemed to be doing for quite a long time in the digital space.
It's getting a lot better, but Arena went through some tough times earlier.
Anyway, yes, that's my vote for Balatro.
All right. And my vote, I'm going to have to give it to Magic the Gathering Arena because it let me play Magic finally. And before that, I wasn't going to. And it's for all the reasons that were stated earlier. But mostly the money, right? Like, I could have probably not spent that $30 in the summer unless Bloomborough came out. Like, I'd like, to take a chance if we know that Magic isn't going on to the next round, to talk about the really good parts of it. Like, it released Bloomborough, which was a cool new world, which addressed one of the criticisms that they weren't making new worlds anymore. And, you know, a lot of their content was getting really samey for their lore and their art. Magic the Gathering flavor text on the bottom of cards, I've always found to be one of the most stimulating and cool fantasy writing that I've ever seen. The most powerful, like, bang for your buck, tell a picture about this world in 2 sentences or 1 sentence. I that's arguably some of my favorite fantasy writing. The art is completely gorgeous, and I just love being able to interact with something that's had so much dedication and time and care with it for free completely. And it's also, I know plenty of people play it on their phone, going to and from work. It's a great phone game. It offers a great phone game experience. And it's the full version of the game, even on the phone. So it's, you know, they've been doing a lot of extra stuff with offering real life prizes for, you know, I guess making their tournaments more equal to the physical tournaments. But mostly, I guess it's more of a philosophical structure, which is, I view video games as portals to experiences. And Magic the Gathering Arena has given me a portal to a very complex and beautiful, detailed engagement of, I guess, the landscape that it's letting your mind play in. And for better or worse, Balatro showed me that portal to Balatro's experience, and it just, I bounced off of it. I couldn't really get behind the, like, make number go big experience for, you know, I don't know. Like, I think it's, in a way, it didn't work with how I was seeing progress or how I was measuring, like, what is worth advancing my time, you know, just to, like, unlock new jokers, I guess. I'm not sure, but yeah. All right. Well, that's me.
Great.
And the winner is Balatro for this one. Congratulations, Balatro.
Yet another win.
All right. So we have our next, moving swiftly along to our next category. It is Tiny Rogues versus Dredge. And we'll be kicking it off with Line Arc Line. Tell us, what is Tiny Rogues?
Well, it is the second roguelike that I am bringing today. And here we are. So Tiny Rogues is, in short, the new Enter the Gungeon for me. And the reason I say that is because Enter the Gungeon was my first love with roguelikes. It taught me that caring about the run was beautiful and enabled me to enjoy video games to a very exciting degree. It was one of those things that made me really want to go home and play a game, is the potential that a roguelike brought. And Enter the Gungeon had so much breadth of content that it made me always excited to start a new run. I have a few things that I believe make a roguelike a good game, a good roguelike. And one of the most prominent is, if every run you make, every time you play this game, you get attached to the way that your run is going. You get attached to, you think, now this is the run. This is the run where I finally do it. And Tiny Rogues has that effect for me. We were just talking about Balatro, and I don't always feel that way in Balatro. But in Tiny Rogues, you can get powerful, but you earn it. And that is among the best, compliments for a roguelike for me, is you can get extremely powerful, But the reason you get powerful is because you earn that power through exciting moments and good gameplay.
All right,
Oh.
and I brought
yeah.
okay, yeah. I brought a game called Dredge, and Dredge is a cozy horror fishing game made in 2023 by Black Salt Games. And hang on, let me do the trailer thing real quick. Oh, one moment. Yeah, so Dredge is a cozy horror fishing game, and I brought this game because for me it was also one of those games where you think about it all day while you're at work, and you come home and you're just so excited to play this game again. And it's kind of rare for me to have games like that. And this past year, I had several of them, so it was kind of it was a tight test to see which games I would bring this year. But this one, I think the themes and mechanics of this game were something that I had just never seen before. And I will go on to talking about why I brought it, which is, yeah, the games and mechanics are, or the themes and mechanics are things that I had never seen before. The art is fantastic and interesting, and I enjoy indie cozy games quite a lot. But I enjoyed that this one combined it with the aspect of horror in such a way that you could just play this game as a fun little fishing game if you wanted to. You could just stay in the shallow waters and just use it as a cute little fishing sim. You could never go out at night. You could just enjoy fishing if you wanted. Or you could venture out at night and go fight monsters and solve the mysteries. And honestly, the fishing mechanic is also really good, which is a plus. So it makes you actually want to play it just for the mechanics. And you also do feel very powerful with the upgrades. Like, you don't actually level up your ship itself, but you add things to it, and you also get better at the mechanics themselves. And so you feel like you're actually growing throughout the game, and it makes the monsters seem less and less scary as you go. And I always have a list of games that make me take notes, which is a very good sign of a good game for me. And this game did make me take notes. There are little mysteries and things you can uncover. And the story and twist at the end actually took me by surprise, which is kind of rare for mystery games. But I enjoyed the twist and I enjoyed the story.
Well, a big thing of its aesthetic too. Like I
Yeah,
like
the
the
aesthetic is
Lovecraftian
fantastic.
vibe. Yeah, like it's clear inspiration in Lovecraftian. What's it? What's the bay with the fish people?
Yeah,
I love.
Innsmouth.
Yes, exactly. It's very well executed. If I remember right, it's a fairly small team too, and I
Mhm.
think they did an excellent job with it.
Yeah, it also sort of covers different themes of eldritch horror. Like there's clearly the kind of bay with lots of spooky fish and octopus monsters, of course. And then you also have the sort of more tropical areas with different kinds of monsters and different kinds of lore. There's the ice area in the DLC, which has different kinds of monsters and different things awakening from underneath the ice. And so I enjoy that it sort of explores different themes of the genre as you play through the game. And what else did I have about this game? The replayability is great since it still does have DLC that's coming out. I think there was one that came out only a couple of months ago.
Oh, that's great.
And
Oh wow.
it has a Pokedex aspect to it, which I enjoy because you can just catch different fish and you have to go back to the same places a lot at different times of day with different kinds of bait, different kinds of nets and fishing poles, just to sort of fill out your fish Pokedex.
Yeah. Is there like eldritch versions of each of the fish that you have to
Yes.
find that are really cool?
Every single fish has a spooky version, which I call the cute version. And they're all weird and nasty, and I love them. And also, you can pet the dog, which is a great aspect of any game. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can pet the
As long
dog.
as
It's a good
you can do that.
game.
Can you pet
And
the dog
like driving the boat seems fun.
Yeah, it's really fun, and it's actually really, really hard. But that's again one of those things where, like, you don't just level up your boat handling points. You level up your boat handling skills.
As a player, as a
As a
gamer,
player,
as a
yes.
gamer, you get better at gaming.
Yeah, you
My-
level up your skills rather than your points, which I enjoy.
Kat and I were playing this, and we made a small fonk edit of boat drifting. And
Yes.
Nice.
it's good. It's fun to move around in this game, and I
Yeah.
love that.
It handles very nicely. Very
All
satisfying.
right. Well, so that is
I'd
the
like to
discussion
talk.
for Dread.
Oh,
Huh?
sorry.
Or do you want to add something?
Sorry. I thought you were jumping to voting. My apologies.
Oh no,
No,
you can
no.
talk about Tiny Road.
Why did you bring Tiny Rogues?
Thank you for
Line Arc Line.
asking. I'm so sorry. The reason I brought Tiny Rogues, like I said before, a depth of content, but there is an aspect to it that I haven't covered, where it is still in development, and usually this would be a great downside to a game. However, each one of the updates that the single developer releases are a depth of content that is actually exciting. And just in the most recent addition to the game, they've not only rewritten from scratch several aspects that make the gameplay much simpler, but also added an insane amount of content that is there to be discovered. Content that it keeps a mystery alive. Like, one of the things that I use to judge games is if I feel like I've kind of seen everything the game has to offer and seen all of the things to come. With Tiny Rogues, I don't think I have. And that's really exciting, and it keeps me coming back.
Yeah. The thing I'll say for Tiny Rogues is it's one of the most fun roguelite experiences because I can actually do it. And I feel like I don't immediately die all the time. I feel like Tiny Rogues works with the type of gamer that I am, and it creates interesting decisions about your builds often. And it feels like there's real skill and a generosity to their loot that's always interesting and fun. I feel like I have a unique build every time I go.
Also, to what you said about it being still not finished, is I feel like there's a big difference between a game being unfinished and a game being constantly updated. And constantly updated is very, very good because, like you said, you just get more content and more things, even though it is a fully playable and finished game.
Yeah, the core of it is already so fun that it works right now on its own.
Yes.
I mean, there is certainly, when I played it a lot, after about 20 hours, I feel like I did kind of get to all the bosses and all the endings for all the characters. But, you know, it's like you said, it's not finished. The content creator knows that they're needing to put more things in the end game, and they are.
Yeah. It's good, clean fun.
Good, clean
Yeah.
fun.
It's
All right.
Kind of, and also two different approaches to what is essentially, or both, I should say, for both games, there are also two different approaches to like that kind of rogue-like and rogue-light mechanics. So that's always fun.
Oh, actually, are you talking about Dredge versus Tiny Rogues there?
Well, specifically just the fishing part of it, where it's like you go
Okay.
out, you fish. Yeah, I know that like
Yeah,
the
'cause I
main story
actually-
is more linear.
I actually thought that Dredge was a roguelike at first, and so I was playing things very, very carefully and close to the chest because I was like, if the monster gets me, I'm dead. I have to restart my 10-hour
Yeah.
gameplay. Oh my god.
Like in Sunless Sea, which is kind of a
Yeah.
fishing roguelite. Well, more like an adventure, but yeah.
Yeah, but it turns out that it was not the case, and actually getting hit by the monster is extremely low stakes. And then I was like, oh, all right, I'll just plow through this game then. Never mind.
Yep.
So I kind of wish the stakes were higher in Dredge, to be honest.
What do you think about a round for the name? Some kind of unifying theme for the story.
Ooh.
It's kind of like tiny, cozy horror.
With
Yeah, they
the
both have
fish.
that like cute side to it.
I
Yeah,
might go-
Tiny Rogues does have. They are tiny. They're very small. I'm looking at them right now.
Cute horror.
Yeah, I might go like
Spooky
Ever
cute.
Deeper
Spooky cute.
or
Ooh,
What was that,
that's
Jacob?
good.
Ever Deeper.
Ooh, yeah.
That's
You're going
true.
deeper in the dungeon.
You do.
Mhm. Or yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I enjoy that.
Yeah, I think they're just cozy, fun experiences. Like
Yeah.
the reason I play Tiny Rogues is when I want something that doesn't have to like stress me out emotionally, but is still really fun. And it's kind of like when I'm tired, I have low energy and I just want to like play a fun game where I grind a little bit to get something cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's also like a social game. It's just fun to like throw on the TV and watch someone else going through a run.
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah,
works
I
for
like-
both of the games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cozy fun. I think that's a pretty good description for both.
Yeah.
Mhm. All right. Well, do you want to get to voting? How do you think?
Certainly, I'd be happy to start.
Sure.
Yeah, I think my vote's gonna go for Dredge. I really like their aesthetic. I'm surprised that kind of the inherent partnership between Lovecraftian horror that has a lot of fish involved and fishing wasn't actually explored that much before this point. I mean, probably in smaller places, but it's also always good to see indie games doing well. So yeah, definitely. For me, it's Dredge.
All right. What do you think, Shauna?
I love Dredge so much. I literally had a nightmare about this dream like 2 nights ago, so it's clearly still on my mind, and it's just good. I keep going back to it and like seeing it in my Steam library and being like, ah, yes, that was a good time. Like I yearn for the sea of this little cute video game that I played a year ago.
Yeah,
Um,
it's your white whale to play
yeah,
Dredge
so I'm like,
more.
it's a good
Children
game.
yearn for the
And the
lures.
DLC just came out, so I need to get on that and actually play it. Um,
It's a
But yeah.
whale of a time.
it's unique and interesting and has mechanics that I enjoy very much.
Yeah, a cozy catch.
A cozy catch.
What do you think, Sunless? Where's your heart?
Again, I am split. I love Tiny Rogues. Dredge is so cool. I love Eldritch Horror. I love Bullet Hells and action roguelikes. Roguelites.
Mhm.
Tiny Rogues is a great version of that. Dredge pioneered the cozy horror genre. And yeah, like you said, finally married Cthulhu and fishing, like somehow no one had done before.
Yeah,
for some
it
reason.
seems like an obvious. See, that's the mark of a good idea. Is
Why
it sounds
haven't-
obvious after someone else comes up with it.
Yeah, the fear of the
Yeah.
ocean, I think, a lot of
Yeah.
people already have that, and it's been talked about for games like Subnautica, but actually just going ahead and making it a horror game, or at
Well,
least
and
with horror elements, I should say.
And what makes it even sillier is Cthulhu, the story famously takes place in a fishing village. And
Oh,
he's
yeah.
Yeah.
underwater and killed by a fishing boat hitting him. So like it's kind of been in the ichor of Eldritch horror for a long time.
And fishing games go back
You just see
ages.
it-
Yeah.
sorry, I feel like you just don't see it from the perspective of the fisherman usually. Like
Yeah.
usually
Yeah.
it's all about like the scholar who goes to research things or the cultists who are being crazy and weird. And the fishermen or the fisher people are just kind of on the side being like, yeah, I saw this really weird thing the other day. You want to come like hear about it, I guess?
Yes, and you're like, yes, I'll employ you, peasant.
Yes, tell me
Yeah.
this story. But you
So I
never
think-
actually see just
Yeah.
what it would be like to be a fisherman out in infested waters.
Exactly. So I think given that these are actually, I think for me, perfectly tied, I'm going to side on the edge of making this a real discussion and go with Tiny Rogues.
Okay. All right, Line Arc Line, where are you feeling like your vote is, your
I
sacred
am-
sovereignty?
Kind of torn as well, to be honest, because the time that I spent both playing Dredge and the time that I spent watching other people play Dredge, I really enjoyed. There we go. I kind of fell off Dredge after a bit, and I regret that a bit. I have not yet fallen off of Tiny Rogues, and I find myself really excited for every update that comes out. Doesn't mean I'm not going to go back to Dredge, though. I'm watching this gameplay trailer, and I'm remembering all of the wonderful things that it brought to my life. And it seems like also an approachable version of Lovecraftian horror, because I really wanted to like Sunless Sea, which was a top-down roguelike, complete wipe on every run. That
game
your
is so
runs
hard. I
could
could
be
never scratch the
hours
surface of it
long.
either.
There was a lot of reading, and
I
you
will
had to
say,
really keep track of
when
stuff.
you die in Sunless Sea, your captain inherits things. So that is some
Good
amount of
point.
progress in the sense that you don't have to rebuy everything.
You're
But
correct.
that
I'd
character is
forgotten that.
dead.
It is still so rough to die in that game, and also I never
agree.
felt like I was playing it on the level. On
That's
Dredge,
what kept me off of it too.
I feel like I played Dredge at the level that it wanted, and I was still, curious and afraid of various things in the game. I was afraid to go over there at night. I was afraid to run out of light during the night. And I still think I'm going to give it to Tiny Rogues, but boy, it's kind of a coin's edge here.
All right. Well, it's my suffrage that is on the line here. So I will give a short speech on, as everyone did, about how close this is for me. I really love Tiny Rogues, and I played a lot of it. I don't know if I own Dredge, but I've played a bit of it on other people's accounts, and it gets those like grinding hooks in me where I want to, improve my boat and make it faster and get better reels and get better things and collect all the fish Pokemon and get the rare versions of them. Like, I'm a super sucker for that. I love that stuff. And also the art design is really interesting, and the writing too. Like, Tiny Rogues, I love so much as a gameplay experience, but I did feel like I got to the end of what I thought Tiny Rogues was pretty quick, like within 10 hours. Maybe that's just because I did effective builds and didn't really lose very many runs. I don't think I've lost very many Tiny Rogues runs. So in that way, the commitment I have to Tiny Rogues is I want to beat the game with every single character, and there gets to be a lot of characters. But once you fully upgrade the fireplace at the beginning, you just get the same amount of points that you have to kind of shuffle between for different builds, which I found to be like a cap that kind of kept me in that space where I'm like, I feel like I'm done with Tiny Rogues.
I agree.
Whereas Dredge, I think Dredge has a lot of legs. I think its art is really, really good. And it's just charming and cute as a world in ways that, the reason that Gungeon was so charming was because it put things into the world that were adorable and felt fully fleshed out enough. And I think there is a threshold for that where the theming of Gungeon was so pervasive that it just became its own meme. I don't think Tiny Rogues quite has that same level of charm for its world building. And I just really want to 100% Dredge,
Yeah.
I feel like Dredge is a game that I'm going to remember for a very long time. And Tiny Rogues is a great game that I might play regularly, but I don't end up thinking about Tiny Rogues that much when it's not in front of me. Yeah. So I have to give it to Dredge. I think Dredge it's more of a game of a year for me, whereas Tiny Rogues I think I'll reserve until the full version of it comes out, if that makes any sense, where there's a robust end game.
That makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
And
all right, what does that mean for the totals? Dredge, and Tiny Rogues. All right, Dredge takes it by a whisker, catfish whisker. He's able to reel in the win. All
Skin
right.
is thin.
So that should be it for our rounds. How's everybody feeling?
I don't know if I have enough time today to talk about salsas. Can we postpone that?
I think we're going to have to, as much as aching and as dire as my need to talk about salsa truly is.
Yeah, we can put it in the fridge and it'll last like at least a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Honestly, the burning has faded from my tongue with all that talking, and I need to get it back on so I can give you the full emotional realism of
That's true. It needs
salsa.
to be very fresh and vibrant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it needs to be a caliente pico salsa for me to really have to be in the moment of talking about the salsa.
Fresh.
And unfortunately, that shine has faded. All right. Well, then that will conclude our episode number 1, Spiciest Salsa for 2024. I think we had some really close ones here. I think that was a really productive discussion. Next time, of course, we're going to be taking the Pentiment, Helldivers 2, Horizon Forbidden West, and Life is Strange that got a round 1 bye, and they're going to be having to go up against Dredge. Sorry, what were our winners? Balatro?
So
Yeah.
the
Winner of round 1 was
EDF.
EDF. Yeah.
EDF.
Earth Defense Force.
And winner of round 2 is Nobody Wants to Die versus Helldivers 2.
Yep.
Then we will go Balatro against Horizon Forbidden West. Exciting matchup. And then it will be Dredge against Life is Strange. Which version of Life is Strange is it?
Before the Storm, so it's a sequel prequel. So it's a game that came out after the original, but is technically a prequel. I mean, it is.
Life is Strange
technically.
Before the Storm.
Mhm.
All right. Well, exciting matchups all around. Okie doke. Can't wait to see you there. That should be out by next week at the same exact time, same exact station.
Yeah.
All right, everybody.
Turn that
Peace
dial.
out. Thank you very much for listening, those that did. And we will be sure to come back for our Spiciest Salsa 2024 semifinal round.